Oh, please don't go. Don't go. I'm gonna lock down our boards here. Come on in. Come on. This will be good. Air mobility revolution. I promise you. You know, I know you all took time coming here in a car. You're probably just pulling your hair out, stuck in Riyadh traffic. Maybe the next time you come, we can have you as part and parcel of our air mobility revolution. You'd never know. Let's get started. One of our colleagues is, he's multitasking today, so we have him finishing up another panel, but we will get started here. Sebastien Borel joins me. He's the Chief Commercial Officer with Lilium, and Nikhil Goel, the Chief Commercial Officer with Archer Aviation. So let me get to a task with these two and see what's going on here. And then we'll come back and we'll get JoeBen. So talk to me, Sebastien. We're talking about, you know, air mobility, and clearly we've had great conversations today about new planes coming and new airlines coming to Saudi Arabia and everything, but we may have a different form of airline, of aviation transportation coming. Talk to me about the craft, the smaller craft that's going to revolutionize how we move around, and again, maybe talk a little bit about the public acceptance of that. We don't see them at the moment, but soon, he says.
Absolutely. So yes, air mobility exists, obviously. We have airlines, private jets, helicopters, but we are talking about advanced air mobility. By that, what we mean is usually electrified, sometimes hybrid, but sustainable, safe, and vertical takeoff and landing to get closer to the end destinations. That will, you know, change the way we travel. That will get the distances to be shorter. Every time you have congestion, terrain or water, all type of aircraft will be able to help, you know, bridging the gap and make the journey much faster. We're just selling time savings, really, in a very safe manner and sustainable manner. As far as public acceptance, you know, I think there is the wrong concept that suddenly we're going to flip a switch and we're going to find hundreds of aircraft, those kind of aircraft flying over the cities. That will come in step. It will be a stepped approach to the adoption, starting usually with, you know, high net worth individuals buying the aircraft, eventually replacing helicopters, private jets, eventually then, you know, going after a mass market of scheduled operations between cities or within the cities to, you know, attract people. And I think when people are going to see our aircraft flying and people flying on a daily basis to, you know, really great destinations, the acceptance will come quite rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, the concept, without a doubt, I think it's very exciting for everybody, and you know, it's getting there. I mean, we've had this conversation here, I think at FII particularly, and if anybody supports this, it definitely is FII. We'll talk a little bit about what you're doing later in the region. Nikhil, when we look at congestion in cities, without a doubt, it's growing. You know, entire populations are moving to cities, but they're not necessarily getting on public transport as much as everybody would love them to. There's still a lot of the one-car journeys. So there's huge challenges. Talk to us a little bit about that growth that we're seeing, and are we actually moving fast enough to make this a reality? Because I think in Riyadh and even in Dubai right now, we could be doing with maybe a new aviation solution.
Absolutely. Look, I was at Uber for the first chunk of my career, and one of the early realizations we came to was today half of the world's population lives in cities. By 2050, it'll be about 2/3 of the world's population. So cities are growing exponentially, the populations are. But transportation solutions are getting worse. They're getting slower, more congested, dirtier, more expensive. And public transit, to your point, will always be the most affordable, most efficient way to get from A to B at scale, at rush hour, but not at off times of the day, and certainly not when you need to build new routes, because
You say public transport?
Public transport. So if you need to go build a new rail line, take the HS2 that they're building in the UK, it's going to cost you billions of dollars, and that'll get you one route. Yeah. If you need to add another route, then all of a sudden you've got to double that cost. With air transportation, if you've got 2 nodes and you add a 3rd node and then you add a 4th, you're suddenly able to connect to all the other nodes in the network. Yeah. And that's what makes air transportation within urban environments extremely scalable and extremely low capex. That's why I got excited about it at Uber, and that's one of the things that Archer and everyone here on stage is sort of pursuing.
And again, when you put it like that, it does sound exciting. And right now on public transport, sorry, it's love or no money is getting me on public transport.
Exactly.
In rush hour. You know, it's like I'll plan my life around another way. But come back to this idea of, you know, congestion in the sky, basically. Should we worry about that? If this takes on at such a pace, you know, there's not really stoplights and various things in the sky. You know, how do we manage the transportation that's going to be all happening up there?
So in my previous life, I worked for Airbus, and we predicted several times that the air traffic would double every 15 years.
And that's what people were probably saying years ago. Airplanes, congestion in the sky, it won't work.
I mean, you have 10 times more aircraft than you had 50 years ago. So, and we actually manage. So it's always people like trying to bring fear into new technologies, but it's going to happen. On top of it, our aircraft has the latest avionics from the Honeywell or from other suppliers. We have all of the systems on board to integrate in the air traffic management system. Of course, you have airspace constraints, you have prohibited airspace. We have to work with the regulators to make sure that our economy can grow. And I love the way the Chinese actually call our space. They don't call that the advanced air mobility, they call that the low altitude economy. Because of course aircraft that we know, the airlines, they fly much higher.
Yes,
everything below 10,000 feet. There is a space here to create value, money, and economy.
I like that. It's a different way of looking at it too. It's a pragmatic and sensible way of looking at it. Clearly, Nikhil, we're going to be looking at battery technology, which we need to establish a lot better in terms of the electric aviation. A lot at the moment, payload limitations, various things. We need to work on that, and we need to work faster on that, don't we?
Well, the good news is the batteries that we need to do the type of routes we're talking about are already here. So when I was at Uber, we spent a lot of time taking a look at how people move in and around cities. And what we discovered is the most painful routes weren't necessarily these long 100-mile or 150-mile routes. Typically, those well-traveled routes have beautiful sort of highways built, whether it's Delhi to Agra or Dubai to Abu Dhabi, et cetera. The painful ones are the 20 to 50-mile routes inside of cities that are extremely congested, and there's no more space to build roads. And so if you look at those 20 to 50-mile trips, the only answer is to go up. And so the batteries to do that already exist today. And a lot of that is thanks to the EV industry. In fact, all of it, I would say, is thanks to the electric vehicle industry, whether it's companies like Tesla or really all of the automotives around the world that have pushed the limits on lithium-ion technology and cylindrical cells. We are using those same cells. So our team is alumni of SpaceX, Apple, Tesla, you name it, and we're using those cells that are off the shelf. We're building the battery packs ourselves for safety and reliability, and that's what we're using today. So we don't need any silver bullets or sort of magic. We're going to use those batteries to be able to move in and around cities.
It's getting us there.
That's
JoeBen
right.
joins us here, the founder and CEO of Joby Aviation. JoeBen Bevirt, thank you so much. Lovely to see you. I know you're the busiest man in town. You've already been on the other panel convincing them what's going on. These two gentlemen are kindly trying to convince me that life up in the skies, the low altitude transportation route is the place to go. I've been worried about congestion in the cities and really looking for the answer. Will the likes of Joby and this new aviation concept, will this help relieve that congestion that we're all getting a little bit frustrated with now?
Absolutely. I think Nikhil just did an incredible job talking about some of the fundamental technologies that make vertical takeoff and landing aircraft possible. This is something I've been dreaming about since I was a boy. I began working on in the early 1990s. At that point in time, the batteries weren't ready, but thanks to the incredible innovations that have happened in the electric vehicle industry, we now have batteries that can deliver really important and useful trips. And the impact to that is really on our daily lives and how we move around cities on a daily basis, the amount, both in the time that it takes, but also the quality of the experience. And as an engineer, I'm all about efficiency and saving time, but when you get to fly and you get to see the city from the beautiful vantage of the air, that's really transformative. I was just on another panel and we were talking about the challenges around ground safety.
Yes.
In the US, we lose 40,000 people die every year on our roads. Globally, it's 1.2 million, with 50 million people across the planet who get severely harmed every year by car accidents. And aviation is a really incredible industry in that over the last 100 years, it moved from being something that was quite dangerous to being our safest mode of transportation.
Yeah.
So not only is it our lowest cost mode of transportation and our fastest mode of transportation, 10 plus times faster than driving, but also substantially less expensive per passenger kilometer than driving. We want to take those incredible attributes of aviation and bring them to daily transportation. And I think that's one of the things that's so incredibly exciting about this time and the technology convergence that we're currently living in.
And for you, it's like the double whammy. You also get to work on your childhood dream and do good and create a whole new industry and everything. So wonderful, well done. Sebastien, talk to me about the regulation, because clearly, it's a new form of transportation. The regulation can't be mature, it can't be in place right now. But is it in the works? So you all talking, is it beginning to happen? And how are you cooperating with governments, the regulatories, the industry, everybody?
Well, it's actually more than in the works. It's happening. We're lucky to be based in Europe. Lilium is based in Germany.
Yeah, you're right.
The certification basis for our aircraft was published in 2020. We also had the operational regulation published a few years ago. And some of us was in Las Vegas last week to witness the signature of the same regulation by the FAA with the administrator Whitaker that was with JoeBen and myself and a few others. So it's happening, of course, in Europe and in the US. And we are talking to, a lot of us here are talking to other regulators that usually adopt either EASA or FAA regulation to adopt it on each of the country level. Now, there is last piece of regulation which I think we need to work harder together is the infrastructure piece.
Yes,
the permitting is usually done by national authorities, and we want to make sure that industry gets tighter together with the government, with the EASA and FAA, so we can have a standard or pre-standard that can be applied everywhere, so people don't have tons of questions on the ground side.
Nikhil, pick up on this and also maybe add to it in terms of infrastructure. It's how much of it is in place. Are you seeing and are you encouraged that countries and cities are planning the infrastructure right now to suit this?
Well, it goes back to what I said earlier, which is there should be no magic bullets to making this happen. That's been our entire strategy since day one, which is how do you get to market as quickly as possible, and how do you have as few barriers as possible? The good news on the infrastructure front is that infrastructure already covers the world. The aircraft that I think all of us have built is designed to fit into any existing helipad on Earth. And so you look at a lot of cities, that helipad infrastructure or the airport infrastructure already exists. So in the United States, you have over 5,000 airports that are already there for public use. We only use something like 28 of them.
Now, but the big challenge is getting from the airport to where you want to go.
Exactly.
That's the killer one.
Exactly. And so often what we see, let's say you're going Manhattan to the airport, you'll spend more time in the car before you get to one of the Archer trips. But that infrastructure already exists. In Manhattan, you've got one on West 30th, you've got East 34th, you've got downtown. In San Francisco, you've got 24 helipads that are already there, but you can't use them given the noise. The only one that you're actually able to use is the one on top of the University of San Francisco's hospital, because that is used to save lives.
Yeah. Okay,
LA's got dozens, and you can't use those either. But
so that
our
has to
technology unlocks it.
Okay, JoeBen's dying to get in here. Please.
Yeah, so I would love to just to tag on to that and talk about the incredible opportunity that new takeoff and landing locations present. So as Nikhil talked about, there's amazing infrastructure in places around the world. You've got Tokyo with hundreds of helipads already on buildings. Those are helipads that currently can't be accessed. They're for emergency use only because of the exhaust fumes that come from turbine engines on helicopters.
Yes.
And the air conditioning intakes that are on the rooftops. So they don't want that turbine exhaust
and
going into the building air conditioning system. So with electric propulsion, with zero emissions, you can now take all those existing resources and open them up. And that makes the buildings that those helipads are on more valuable. So we were in Grand Central Station. We had our aircraft in Grand Central in New York City a few weeks ago, and I was doing some research about the history of Grand Central. When Grand Central opened in the decade that followed, real estate prices in that neighborhood tripled. So the value of not just the real estate next door, but the whole neighborhood got elevated by this new mode of transportation. And you see this again and again when a new train track goes in, when a new highway goes in, when a new mode of transportation arrives, the real estate values appreciate. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about this new sector is it gives the ability to take an inconvenient piece of real estate and make it really valuable. Real estate is a $230 trillion global asset class, and this is the lever that moves that in a really profound way.
And again, it's happening. Talk to me, Sebastien, about the infrastructure also that's happening, I suppose, the ecosystems of the electric aviation partners that you've got in place. I mean, are they all lined up, so to speak, to support sustainability and to support growth?
Absolutely. First of all, there is existing infrastructure that we can reuse, right? The first thing we want to do is create a system which is not that expensive to invest into. And so helipads, for example, can be reused. And a lot of helipads have been closed because of noise. They can be reopened because our aircraft are really much more silent than the rest. And so, for instance, Lilium aircraft has a diameter of 14 meters. We fit into 95% of the helipads in the world. So helipads in the US, I think something like 90% of the population lives by 10 minutes away from a municipal airport. So there is a lot of airports. I think there's 5,000 airports in the US, general aviation airports, that are underutilized. So you can use those assets already on top of new malls, golf courses that can also be reutilized. So looking at what's existing, we have enough to start with.
Right.
Then, of course, we have to look at new development, which the Middle East will be perfect for, to create more commercial vertiports, allowing for more scheduled flights, higher frequencies, and lowering the cost. I'm sure we'll talk about the unit economics in a minute, to lower the cost of operation.
JoeBen, talk to me. You mentioned, what work you're doing. You mentioned the US. Talk to me about what you're doing at the moment here in the region. And again, when I think of some of the growth that's happening in the region, you can actually plan here and you can put in your helipads. So if I can ask you, JoeBen, first.
So we're so excited about this part of the world. We announced a partnership with Alula, which is Saudi Aramco's aviation group, where we have the potential where they're going to potentially be buying our aircraft and taking them for many use cases in the region. We've had fantastic conversations with multiple different groups, both here in Riyadh as well as other parts of the kingdom, for a large number of potential use cases and routes. In addition, we plan to be launching our service this next year in Dubai, where we have a 6-year exclusive to run the air taxi service in the Emirate of Dubai, and we're very grateful for that partnership and excited to begin to demonstrate this new technology here in the region.
That's great to hear. So we're looking at then, looking at costs in this, because we have to look at costs everywhere. Nikhil, come in on this one. It's not cheap, but clearly you're convinced there's a market. You've almost got me convinced there's a market. Address the cost and talk to me about how basically this form of air mobility will, transform our lives.
Yeah, when I first looked at this 10 years ago, and I know JoeBen and I spent a lot of time talking about this, the founder of Uber, when I first brought it to him and said, hey, we should go get into urban air mobility, he said to me, listen, this can't just be a rich person's toy. This needs to be able to scale to millions of people all over the world, billions of people all over the world. Otherwise, it's not worth pursuing. It's not worth all the capital that's going to go into it. And so we spent a lot of time. There's a gentleman named Mark Moore who's been working on this technology for over 35 years. He and I spent a lot of time looking at the economics. And if you look at a helicopter today, it's anywhere between $10 to $20 a passenger mile. It's very expensive. Most people cannot afford to do that every day. And the reason it's expensive is because of the fuel and because of the maintenance. For every hour you fly a helicopter, you have to do 5 to 6 hours of maintenance, and that's very expensive because of all the safety problems with choppers. Our aircraft, everyone on the stage, solves a lot of that. First of all, you have no fuel, so you have battery power. And then on top of that, there's very, very low maintenance, similar to in the electric automobile industry. And so you eliminate both of those costs, and you have a quiet aircraft that you can now fly back and forth all day long. That gets you to a price point that's very, very similar to an Uber, probably a premium Uber to start. and then very quickly we'll get to the price point of a taxi. And that's something we think that most people will be able to afford and allows a lot of people to be able to go experience electric air taxis in their lives.
I mean, Sebastien, this sounds a little bit unrealistic to me, the fact that you really hope with scale you can bring the price, I mean, so low per unit cost. You know, realistically, that we might be considering what we might pay for an Uber?
Yep.
Really?
So actually, we are slightly on a different segment than Archer and Joby in the sense that we really want to go for regional air mobility, which means that we want to fly people, I would say 150 to 250 kilometers between cities, connecting cities with each other.
Okay.
So we have to go much lower than what we've been saying in the past, which is roughly speaking, you know, €2 per seat kilometer. My target would be closer to 1. So it actually gets to a point where everyone can afford to take it, like an airline. And to do this, you need two things, really. The highest utilization of your assets, that's number one. And number two, the maximum number of seats in your aircraft, so you can divide simply, you know, your load factor. And we have 6 seats in the Lilium jet, and so when we sold 50 aircraft to Saudi, there is a firm order for 50 aircraft coming to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in 2026 with the 50 options. We looked into the unit economics. We looked into connecting, you know, Jeddah to Mecca. We looked at other places where we want to really attract people and get to a point where, you know, it gets really economically viable. And the third point, I mentioned asset utilization. I mentioned the seat capacity and the battery, right? The battery is going to have to be replaced once in a while, and we need to get the battery cells cheaper so we can actually, you know, when you swap those batteries, have a lowest cost of maintenance. And we can do this. We're all working with the same type of people on the cells. Not only they're getting better and better from a density point of view, but they're getting cheaper as well. So we collectively have to work together to secure the volume of sales. If we do so, we'll get that price point that we're talking about.
I'm impressed and I'm optimistic. Please come in here.
Let me just quickly build on the importance of the cost of the battery cells, and specifically the cost per flight. And one of the elements that we've worked really, really hard on is developing both the design of the aircraft, but also the design of the battery packs and the thermal conditioning for the battery packs so that we get as many charging cycles as we possibly can. We, in the lab, we're getting more than 10,000 40-kilometer flights out of our batteries. So when you take and you look at the cost that my colleagues spoke about, a really key portion of that is the depreciation of that battery pack. What is the cost per passenger flight, or the cost per aircraft flight, or the cost per passenger kilometer that comes from replacing that battery pack? And so the biggest lever that you have is getting as many flights as possible out of it. And the thermal conditioning is really crucial, especially in a place like the Kingdom where you want to be able to do a fast turnaround. And that's another element that's crucial for the operating economics and for the cost, is being able to do a fast turn so that you're spending as little on the pilot, as little depreciation on the aircraft, and as little time taking up the takeoff and landing spot, because the vertiports that we do build will cost money.
JoeBen, if I can come in on this though, you know, when we don't have a whole lot of time left, we're good, but you know, we're also looking at, you know, recharging the batteries and doing all that stuff. Huge pressure on the grid, which is probably at the moment, you know, at bursting point. You know, how do you manage that? And are you looking at maybe other alternative fuels that you might use as well?
Yeah, so two points on that. One, you can take the batteries after you've taken them off the aircraft, and you can put them on the vertiports into your charging stations to remove the peaks off of the demand. So to basically use it as a grid stabilization, one. Two, about 5 years ago, we began pulling the thread on hydrogen, and specifically hydrogen electric propulsion. Hydrogen's incredible because it has 3 times the specific energy of jet fuel. It has 100 times the specific energy of today's cells. That is the energy per unit mass. Additionally, we can take the energy in hydrogen and convert it into propulsion twice as efficiently with hydrogen electric compared to a small turbine converting jet fuel into propulsion. So that's a 6x reduction in the mass of your fuel compared to jet fuel, run through a turbine, which is a total game changer. It allows us to build aircraft that can fly dramatically farther, that can fly for very long periods of time, and I believe it's going to completely disrupt the aviation system writ large, allowing us to build aircraft that have a 1/5 of the energy consumption per passenger mile compared to today's aircraft, and with a 99% reduction in the climate impact. And so just really like to commend the Kingdom on the incredible work that has been done on green hydrogen.
I mean, that's exciting, and hopefully they're going to be doing more work on it. I think it's the one thing we can be sure of here at the Kingdom. Whatever we're doing now, we'll be doing it double in a couple of years ago. I see His Excellency here keeping an eye on us when we're thinking of batteries, all those critical minerals. You're very welcome to be with us, Your Excellency Al Madaifer. It's lovely to see you. But, you know, there's so much going on here, and unfortunately our time is running out of here, but it means I can give you a full minute to wrap up, because I don't think I have time to get you another full question in. Looking at the challenges, looking at the opportunities, where do you go from here? So the call to action to who needs to support you. How do we move this round to whereby, I don't know, maybe next year we're landing here? Who knows? It's a nice spot, right? I'm going to go with you first,
Sure.
Sebastien.
Well, I think, you know, the industry, and I've been in the aviation industry for, you know, more than 25 years, it's an amazing time. That's number one. We are doing something, probably the same revolution as a jet engine in the 60s, 70s. And it's happening. You know, it took us a while to get there, but we're entering into service in 26. I think you guys maybe next year. So it's happening very soon. So all of the support we need, whether it's the supply chain, on the regulators, on the investment, especially for Lilium, you know, definitely.
You could do it more, yeah?
We could do it more.
Okay. So they're open for business here.
You know, we're hoping that's happened now. Yes, it's happening now, hopefully.
Nikhil, please tell me.
Yeah, look, the thing I am most excited about is all of the support and momentum we have here in the Middle East. You know, we brought our aircraft actually just across the street over to the Ritz about 6 months back, and the attention and excitement and the momentum we got out of that has been incredible. Folks, not just here in Riyadh, but across the Kingdom, have been engaging with us with sort of more excitement than I've ever seen, and that excitement has transpired all over the Middle East. In the UAE, Mubadala has been a large investor of ours for many years, and we're planning to launch there in the UAE by the end of next year. We've got an agreement with Abu Dhabi. That's where 85% of the country resides, 85% of the capital resides, and they have made a deal with us to bring us to the country and to start operations there, helping with the regulatory process as soon as the end of next year. And so that's been really exciting, and then you see that across the Middle East. So what I would say the big opportunity is to continue that momentum. Events like this here at FI have really been helpful, and we just can't wait to be here next year.
But now, you know, in Dubai, you can't even put a drone up there in that lower space. So clearly, they're just keeping the drones away, waiting for you guys to show up.
Exactly.
Maybe that's what that has all been about. Close us up, JoeBen, in terms of, clearly, there's great excitement of the work that you've all done. You know what you're doing. You've got the investment so far. How do we scale that up, and how do we make this just the norm?
Yeah, so we're thrilled to be at the point where we're beginning to scale. We have a production capacity of an aircraft a month at this point, and we're going to continue to ramp that. And we're going to be getting these aircraft out to more and more places around the world. Really exciting to be getting some aircraft here to the Kingdom. Very grateful for the lean-in from GACA on the certification front, and from you know, local groups like the RCRC in terms of getting takeoff and landing locations built here in Riyadh, from PIF and the leadership position that PIF is playing with all of the different PIF assets across the Kingdom. So this is an incredibly exciting time both here in the region and around the world as we think about taking to the skies for our daily transportation needs. And again, so very grateful for the opportunity to be here. And when we, as Nikhil mentioned, it was incredible to have our aircraft here at the Ritz just a few months ago. And so thank you again.
So it's great. I mean, it's all happening, and I think you've addressed many of the challenges that are there. Many of the, I mean, there will be, I suppose, maybe not around, you know, in sort of some new cities, but, you know, in congested cities, there's still going to probably be opposition that you have to look at. But you've clearly, I think, done your homework, done the due diligence on that, and you're making it happen. Well done. I mean, you're creating the future. So no better place to do it than in Saudi Arabia. Gentlemen, thank you so much, JoeBen, Nikhil, and Sebastien. And thank you, dear audience, for being with us. So hopefully next year we'll be landing here, right? And then we'll be doing our session maybe over there. Thanks again.